Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at C3 Racing Car Constructors Championship for the PlayStation 1. It was also known as Max Power Racing in the UK. So essentially they're both very similar. There's not really much in terms of difference in with the gameplay style. There might be a few variations maybe of some of the cars that were added in the different regions, but other than that it's essentially the same game. So primarily it's your typical type of racing game. It uses types of like sports cars, hot hatches that were relevant to the time period. It was released in 1998, so it actually did gain a fair bit of traction. I remember back in the days, I remember there was a demo of Max Power Racing that was released on one of the PlayStation magazines, and it was actually quite popular because again Gran Turismo and the likes of Colin McRae were all the hype back in those days, so to have other type of racing games that they would try to be comparable to it, it was kind of a step up. So this game kind of did offer a little bit of everything. It had an arcade feel, but it did try to do a bit of a realistic kind of thing. Now it's not essentially a rally game as such. It has a bit of mixture of everything into it, if I'll be honest, but it doesn't have rally cars, but most of the tracks in the game are pretty much primarily off-road tracks, so essentially it kind of is a spin-off rally game, if you will, because it's got all the essentials of a rally game. Now it's a very playable title. I remember playing the demo of it back in the day, and even when I went back to even play this version of it here, and it is still a very good game. There is a bit of a learning curve in terms of the handling characteristics of the game. It can be a little bit difficult, especially for newbies to come in, and the tracks can be quite long. The races do go on for a bit of a while. It is fun to play. It is a bit unforgiving at points as well, because as you'll see now in a moment with this race, as I was playing it, as I was just messing around, if you do happen to go off the course at any point in the race, not unlike other games where you're actually respawned back on the track, this is definitely, it's goodbye. You may forget about it. It's literally game over. So it is realistic that way. I will admit, like, so it means that you do have to be cautious. You do have to watch what you're doing. It's not a case of just driving like a lunatic around the tracks, because at any point it can be very unforgiving and you will be crucified for your mistakes. There is no room really for error in it, so it's just something to be aware of. So it's your typical type of racing game where you're enter into different arcade modes and different championships, all with their own races. There's a couple of different countries, each with a selection of tracks available, and you do start off with a number of cars at the start, but again it's very limited. So you start off with like small tier kind of hot hatch style cars, like say here the Renault Clio or the Nissan Micra, and then you just kind of work your way up from there. So the more you win races, then the more high-end cars and bigger and faster cars that you will unlock as you go through the game. So it is actually a fun title. It is actually a decent game to play. There is a load of different setups that you can do in the car, so you can tweak different handling characteristics. You can test the car out on the tracks as well before you dive into a race, so you can get a feel for the car to decide whether it's the type of car you want for the race. Depending on the type of terrain can affect the different types of handling aesthetics of the car as well, so it is somewhat realistic in that way. So when it actually did come out in 1998, it was considered to be kind of like a decent looking title in terms of the graphics. It's very nice, sharp, it's shiny. Now it definitely doesn't look as good as say like the Gran Turismo series, which to be honest it's very, very hard to compare any racing game on the PlayStation to that. There are a few noticeable ones, but you didn't see really too many of them in Europe. Mainly I found some of the better looking racing games were in Japan, but we never got to have them back in the day because again they were region specific. So now we can play them nowadays, but back in those days, back 20 years ago, you couldn't play them unless you were able to get some sort of modified version of a console, or you had access to be able to buy a console from Japan, but then you still needed ways to be able to power up and play it. So we did have our own alternatives here in Europe, but they were still really good titles. So this game was primarily from the same developers as the Total Driven game, or even Grand Tour Racing 98. I've actually done a previous video on that. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out. And it plays very, very similar. So it does. It's a decent title. It has its quirks, it's difficult, it's tough, but it offers a unique challenge that is actually worthwhile actually having a go of, and I highly do recommend it if you do give it a go. If you're into your racing titles, and even if you want something that's a bit different, that's kind of has a bit of everything, this here might be something that might be worth looking into. So I do recommend you give it a go. So what are your thoughts on this game? Or depending on the version of it that you played back in the day, whether it was C3 Racing Championship or whether it was Max Power Racing. What are your memories of it, and did you enjoy it? Make sure to share your thoughts down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be updated whenever I release future content, and also feel free to share the video, as I will be exploring a lot of these classic games and share my thoughts and memories with everyone. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.